A miracle happened about 300,000 years ago. And I want to tell you what it is because it has everything to do with what we're talking about. We come from the apes, right? Biology, evolution shows that we come from the apes, but the apes have 48 chromosomes. Chromosomes are what makes up your DNA, right? In America, we have a company called 23andMe. 23 from mom, 23 from dad. That's 46. And here I am. Well, the apes have 24 and 24. They have 48 total, which is one reason, other than the fact that they don't find us very sexy or attractive, is one reason we cannot mate with them or have offspring is because they have 40, hey, we have only 46, but we came from them. We originally had 48 chromosomes. And what happened is about 300,000 years ago, there was a fusion between two chromosomes. They fused, and they became one, single one. So chromosomes have at their end, they have telomeres at the end. And telomeres is like the eraser in a pencil or like the plastic in your shoelaces that keeps it from unraveling. They're at the ends of the chromosome. Well, chromosome number 2 has them at the end, but it also has them in the middle, indicating that this is a fusion of two ancient chromosomes. And chromosome number 2 fused about 300,000 years ago, and this is the one responsible for our growing the new brain, the neocortex, that emerged around 300,000 years ago. Incredible new brain, the prefrontal lobes, the higher brain. Nobody knows why this happened, but it happened overnight. Unexplainable, but we know it occurred because of these telomeres in the middle of the chromosome. So that's the miracle that allowed us to develop this higher brain that allowed us to understand God experientially, not mathematically, but experientially. And there are only 3 species that have such a highly developed brain. And those 3 species are humans, dolphins, and whales. And they're the only 3 species, they have the biggest brain to body weight ratio. These 3 species, and they're the only 3 species in the planet that don't have a death program in their DNA. They don't have a death program. You don't have a death program. Whales don't have a death program. We're taking part in a biology experiment in longevity. In nature, every other species, there are about 40 million species in the planet. Every one of those species has a death program. There are no grandmothers in nature. There's no menopause in nature. Once you get to the age of not being able to reproduce, to make babies, you're eliminated in nature. Except humans, dolphins, and whales. Grandmother whales, orcas, will teach their young how to speak, will show them where the hunting grounds are. The human grandmothers would share their wisdom with their granddaughters and grandparents. There's no grandparents in nature. They have a death program. We don't have a death program. What's happening is that together with this incredible new brain that appeared 300,000 years ago and the lack of a DNA-driven death program, we have the opportunity to begin experimenting with our own biology. It's what biohacking is all about, in effect. But if biohacking is driven by fear of dying, you got the wrong agenda. It's got to be driven by a desire to take part in this biology experiment that Mother Nature has us engaging in. And this is what the shamans of old understood. they understood that, but biology, by the way, is experimenting all the time. I'll tell you another experiment biology is doing. It's happening in the Andes and in the Himalayas. And this is with people that live at very high altitudes. So in the Andes and in the Himalayas, you have, the Andean people that live at 15,000 feet, 5,000 meters. In the Andes, the experiment was more hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the oxygen transport molecule. Every time you get a blood test, they show your hemoglobin level. When you adapt to altitude, you get more hemoglobin. So in the Andes, the Andean peoples are shorter, their hearts are twice the size of ours, and they have twice as much hemoglobin as we do. So they adapt to altitude. Well, the experiment didn't work very well. People die young at high altitude in the Andes. In the Himalayas, the experiment was not more red blood cells. The experiment was more mitochondria, which are the fuel factories inside every cell. They have small hearts like we do, the same amount of hemoglobin, but they have twice the mitochondria. That's why Sherpas can go all the way to the top of Everest without needing oxygen. But all the white people have to, take oxygen tanks. So that experiment worked. Biology is always experimenting, and we're taking part in a most amazing experiment right now for those people that choose to be part of the experiment. The problem is that we have been so exposed to contaminants in our food, in the air, in the water, that it's messing with the experiment. And that's why to be part of the experiment, you got to eat clean. You've got to drink clean water. You've got to know where your water and your food comes from. You have to understand you're not what you eat. You are what your food ate. And where's that coming from? So if we take part in the experiment, the payoff is health, is to live long and die quick, which is what the shamans say, live long, die quick. It's a blessing. Instead of living long, die slow. You don't want that. So you either get to take part in the experiment, and today it's so critical that if you're not taking part in the experiment during this extinction event, then you're going to be part of the control group. And the control group is how everybody else gets old and dies and lives and has diabetes at the age of 12 instead of 60, like happened before, has the tremendous amount of burden of diseases that we see in our aging population. So anyway, that's the kind of the shamanic perspective of the tremendous opportunity that we have before us.
Hey there, Inspired Evolutionary. If you absolutely loved this, well then here's a full conversation with this guest on the Inspired Evolution podcast. Check it out now.